Imagine dragging a man to court for stealing your life savings, only to watch your lawyer spontaneously forget how to speak, your key witnesses inexplicably collapse, and the judge start growling like a dog from the bench. This isn't the scene from a Hollywood horror movie. It is the very real, highly documented 1933 trial of a Canadian cult leader who turned a utopian island into a brutal forced labor camp and then allegedly used dark occult powers to fight off a massive civil lawsuit. Welcome to Exhibit Absurd, where we showcase the strange, bizarre, and downright amusing corners of legal history. Our story begins in 1927 on the rugged coast of Vancouver Island. A former English sea captain, amateur occultist, and lifelong drifter named Edward Arthur Wilson arrived with a grand apocalyptic vision. Wilson claimed that while suffering a mysterious illness in the south of France, he was visited by an ascended ancient Egyptian spirit. This spirit allegedly informed him that he was the 12th brother of a divine council called the 11 Brothers of Wisdom. Naturally, Wilson rechristened himself Brother 12. Brother 12 preached that Western civilization was morally bankrupt and on the brink of absolute destruction. But he offered a golden ticket. He was building a literal city of refuge at a remote settlement called Cedar by the Sea. If you joined him, you would survive the apocalypse. But there was a catch. To enter this paradise, you had to hand over your worldly wealth to prove your spiritual purity. Brother 12 wasn't targeting poor, desperate drifters. He launched a sophisticated charm offensive aimed squarely at wealthy, highly educated American and Canadian socialites, executives, and doctors who were looking for spiritual meaning in the roaring 20s. Holding court under a moss-draped maple he called the Tree of Wisdom, he reeled them in with his channeled book, The Three Truths. And the elite flocked to him, bringing their fortunes. A millionaire poultry farmer from Florida named Roger Painter showed up with a $90,000 donation. That's over $1.6 million today. Other followers included prominent Chicago executives, Toronto journalists, and English occultists. But his biggest catch was Mary Connolly, a wealthy widow from Asheville, North Carolina. She initially handed over $25,000, about $450,000 today, just to buy up a 400-acre sanctuary on Valdez and DeCourcy Islands. Over several years, her contributions blew past $250,000, eventually totaling an estimated $520,000. In today's money, Mary Connolly single-handedly handed this man over $9 million. Because Brother 12 was deeply paranoid about banks, he converted this multi-million-dollar fortune into solid $10 and $20 American Eagle gold coins. He packed them into glass mason jars, sealed them with melted paraffin wax, and hid his untraceable pirate's treasure across the islands. By 1929, the promised utopia quickly morphed into a totalitarian nightmare. Brother 12 took a ruthless new mistress named Mabel Scotto, whom the terrified colonists dubbed Madame Z. Madame Z became the island's iron-fisted enforcer. Spiritual teachings vanished, replaced by grueling, arbitrary physical labor designed to break the followers' spirits. Madame Z patrolled the grounds with a riding crop, whipping anyone who slacked off. Remember Mary Connolly, the wealthy southern socialite who funded the entire island? Brother 12 forced her out of her comfortable home and into an uninhabitable, drafty wooden shack. Despite her advanced age, she was ordered to manually disc, harrow, and cultivate a 3-acre farming field entirely by herself. Another follower, a 76-year-old former schoolteacher named Sarah Tuckett, was worked so ruthlessly by Madame Z that she was driven to attempt. To ensure no one escaped, Brother 12 heavily fortified DeCourcy Island. He stockpiled a massive private arsenal of firearms, built defensive watchtowers, and armed a loyalist militia. Paranoid and erratic, he ordered his guards to fire warning shots at any local commercial fishing boats that sailed too close to his kingdom. By 1932, the spell finally broke. Bankrupt, starved, and treated like prisoners of war, the disciples realized they had been utterly defrauded. Led by Mary Connolly and Alfred Barley, they revolted and dragged Brother 12 into the legal system, launching a massive civil lawsuit in the Supreme Court of British Columbia. The ensuing civil trial, held in the spring of 1933 at the Provincial Court in Nanaimo, remains one of the most absurd legal battles in Canadian history. The plaintiffs just wanted their money back, but the testimony sounded like a dark occult horror novel. Follower Roger Painter took the stand and testified that Brother 12 and Madame Z would lock themselves in a pitch-black room inside a drawn triangle, visualizing their enemies, including prominent government officials, and use black magic to strike them down. And inside the courtroom, it genuinely looked like the magic was working. The trial descended into sheer chaos. As Brother 12 sat at the defense table, glaring menacingly, an otherwise healthy key witness named Turnbull suddenly suffered paralysis and collapsed mid-testimony. Multiple people in the gallery fainted. The plaintiff's lawyer suddenly stopped speaking mid-sentence, gripped his head, and claimed a psychic attack had completely wiped his mind of his legal arguments. Most absurdly, local legend and court lore claim that even the presiding judge, Chief Justice Ollie Macaulay Morrison, was affected, at one point losing the ability to speak and growling like a dog from the bench. The entire legal proceeding was paralyzed by absolute hysterical fear. To combat the supernatural legal defense, the prosecution had to get extremely creative. Realizing the court was losing control, one of the lawyers managed to procure a distinct First Nations artifact, a labre, or lip piercer, that had belonged to a powerful Haida medicine woman. The lawyer handed the artifact to the terrified followers and told them that if they held it while in the witness box, Brother 12 couldn't touch them. The legal strategy was brilliantly absurd because the indigenous magic was local to British Columbia. It would easily overpower Brother 12's imported Egyptian occult energy. Incredibly, the psychological shield worked. Clutching the artifact, the witnesses found their courage, the amnesia vanished, and they testified with absolute confidence. With the psychic spell broken, the judge ruled heavily in the favor of the followers, awarding Mary Connolly $37,000, about $700,000 today, and the deeds to the islands. The judge famously declared it the strangest case ever to come before a Canadian court of law. Now, if you're sitting there wondering how an entire Canadian legal proceeding was genuinely paralyzed by a wizard, the answer isn't supernatural. It's psychology. Brother 12 was a master manipulator. He spent years psychologically conditioning his followers to believe he could strike them dead with his mind. When you take people who are severely malnourished, physically exhausted, and deeply traumatized from years in a forced labor camp, and put them in a high-stress courtroom facing their abuser, their bodies simply shut down. Psychologists call this the nocebo effect. Just like a placebo can cure you if you believe it's medicine, the nocebo effect can cause genuine physical paralysis and amnesia if your brain truly believes you are cursed. The lawyer's brilliant use of the Haida artifact possessed no actual magic, but it acted as the ultimate psychological placebo. It gave the witnesses a mental shield, instantly breaking their panic and allowing them to speak. And as for the legendary story of Chief Justice Morrison growling like a dog from the bench, modern historians have largely debunked that as courtroom folklore. According to legal biographers, the judge likely just suffered a bad coughing fit and aggressively cleared his throat to regain order in the chaotic room. But because the courtroom was already griped by the terrifying narrative of black magic, sensationalist reporters warped a simple cough into a demonic possession, and an irresistible piece of legal legend was born. But Brother 12 was not a man who paid his court judgments. Sensing defeat, he and Madame Z didn't even bother to mount a legal defense. While the trial was wrapping up, they were busy completely vandalizing the island compound. They smashed the buildings, destroyed farm equipment, and loaded their private yacht with over 40 glass jars packed with their stolen gold coins, a hoard worth roughly $400,000 at the time, which translates to a staggering $9 million today. When the bankrupt followers finally returned to the island with the court order, they found their utopia in ruins. Desperate to recover anything, they tore up the floorboards of Brother 12's house, hoping he had left a jar behind. Instead, they found a rolled-up piece of paper scrawled in chalk with one final petty message from their false prophet. For fools and traitors, nothing. Brother 12 officially vanished into the mist. He resurfaced in Switzerland, where he reportedly died of heart failure in 1934. However, the doctor who signed the death certificate just happened to be a former Aquarian Foundation member. To this day, many believe Brother 12 faked his death, paid off the doctor with his gold, and lived out his days in luxury under a fake name. And the 43 jars of gold? Some say they made it to Europe, but local treasure hunters swear he couldn't carry it all, and that millions of dollars in gold coins are still buried in the damp, dark caves of Valdez and the Corsi Islands. If you want to uncover more bizarre evidence from the most chaotic archives of legal history, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and we'll see you next time on Exhibit Absurd,